Chairman of West Northamptonshire Council, the Vice Chairman of West Northamptonshire Council, the Deputy Chief Executive, and the Reverend Dr. Father Ted Hale.
Thank you. Councillors, please take your seats. Ladies and gentlemen, before calling the meeting to order, I'd like to ask Father Ted Hale, the Council Chaplain, to lead us in prayers. Over to you, Reverend Head. Thank you. Press a button.
I'll tell you a very brief story. When I first moved to Northampton, which is 40 years ago, I was walking down Toaster Road, where I live, and 3 young lads came towards me in their early teens, and they all said, "Hello, Father. Hello, Father." And I said to them, "Actually, I'm not a father. I'm a Baptist minister." And this glazed look came over their eyes. They ain't got a clue what I was on about. So since then, whatever anybody's called me, I've put up with it, no problem. But I am a Baptist. And Baptists normally like things reasonably simple. So when I was ordained as a Baptist minister, I think 2 people came and put their hands on my head, and that was it. I had a little service and done. I've been to a few ordinations of Church of England ministers. That's very different. There's a lot of symbolism. The last one I went to, they asked me, a Baptist minister, if I would do a little reading at the font. Well, the font is where they baptise babies, and Baptists don't do that. But I made the best of it, and I talked about the water. And then there was a Bible, and then there was the pulpit and all those things. Lots and lots of symbolism, which only came to mind because this morning I was doing my daily little Bible study, which I do through a website called Word Live. And it was about the ordination of the first priests of Israel. And the ordination was carried out by Moses. Well, he told them what to do. And one of the things they had to do really would turn my stomach, really, but they had to slaughter a bull while the priests had got their hands on its head. And then they took some blood, threw some of it on the altar, and then each of the priests had some of the blood daubed on an earlobe, some of the blood put on the thumb of their right hand, and some of the blood put on the big toe of their right foot. Symbolism. Really great symbolism. So I have a little prayer. Some of you might like to bow your heads, some of you might just like just to listen to the prayer, but it is very short. But I think it comes from that sense of being dedicated to God in a way that involves your ears, your hands, and your feet. Lord, sensitize my ears to pick up only the frequency of your voice. Sanitize my hands to be clean of self-interest so that I may serve you and others. Stabilize my feet to walk carefully in your pathways today and always. Amen. And in doing that, I'm sure you will have, all of you and me, a blessed new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Hale. Very good of you indeed to start the meeting, and we welcome you, as always, and the support that you give to ourselves and the Council too. Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, apologies for non-attendance. Item 1 of the Council this evening.
Thank you, Chairman. I've received apologies from Councillors Rebecca Breeze, Maggie Clubley, Daniel Cribbin, Gareth Eales, Louisa Fowler, Rupert Frost, Jonathan Harris, Malcolm Longley, Charles Manners, Colin Morgan, Catherine Russell, Lisa Samiotis, Nick Sturgis Alex, and also Councillor Ashraf, Councillor Clark, Davenport, Emma Roberts, Rosie Humphreys and Anna King.
Thank you very much. And also apologies have been received from Anna Earnshaw, Stuart Luckenby, who's joining us today. A very big thank you to him and a warm welcome to him. He's the Executive Director for People at West Northampton Council, if you haven't already met him, and Deputy Chief Executive. So we appreciate him standing in this evening for Anna Earnshaw. Any questions, I'm sure he'll be very happy to answer. Declaration of interest from members of offices. To receive a declaration of interest, West Northamptonshire Council takes seriously any breach of the Code of Conduct where a matter arises at a meeting in which a council has a disclosable pecuniary interest. This must be disclosed. Please ensure that you do not participate further in any discussion or vote further on the matter and must not remain in the room unless granted a dispensation. Councillors are asked to declare the item number in which they have an interest, the nature of the interest, and whether it is a disclosable pecuniary interest or a non-statutory interest. If there are any interest now, please do advise or take note for the meeting. Thank you. Item 3, minutes of the last meeting, which were held on the 3rd of November. Is it the Council's wish that I sign these minutes of the previous meeting as true and accurate record? Thank you. Bless you. Thank you very much. Item 4, announcements. I regret to inform the Council of the passing of a number of former members of our predecessor authorities. Former South Northamptonshire Councillor David Aronson passed away recently. David served on the South Northamptonshire Council for many years and serving the Dean's Hang Award for Labour. At one time, he was the only Labour representative on the Council, and he served as Chairman of the Council for South Northamptonshire and was held in high regard by everyone. It is also my sad duty to inform Council that former South Northamptonshire Councillor David Brookhouse passed away recently. David, as a member for Helmden, and was Chairman of the Council in his early years, he also held the position of Chairman of the Housing Committee. I believe we have a couple of councillors who'd like to speak. Councillor Wendy Randall, I think you'd like to speak on this item.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I would just like to pass on my condolences. I didn't know Councillor David Brookhouse, but I briefly knew Councillor David Aronson because he is of my political party. And I had the pleasure to meet him a few times. He worked tirelessly for his residents and was highly thought of by all who knew him. So, I'd like to pass on my condolences to his family and friends. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. If anybody else would like to speak, please feel free to do so. In that case, would you like to join me with a minute's applause to remember David Aronson and David Brookhouse, which is a command that we've always taken on board to remember the goodwill that those individuals have put forward for the councils. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm also sad to advise members of the passing of Michael Padley, husband of County Alderman Priscilla Padley. As I'm sure you remember Priscilla and all the hard work that she always carried out, and you'll join me in passing on our deepest condolences to her family as well. Please remember this evening that we will be using the electronic voting system, and for all votes you'll be asked to press the yes to vote or no to vote, against and abstain if self-explanatory. If you have any questions or issues arising, please do raise your hand and let us know, and we can adjust that accordingly. There have been many opportunities to represent the Council over the last 5 weeks, and I have to say that it's been a tremendous pleasure, particularly at the Christmas and New Year's events that have been held throughout many communities to represent our councils, and the intentions that we have, obviously, to further the business and the community development. I'd like to thank all colleagues who have extended invitations and managed that opportunity within their areas to make sure that West Northamptonshire Council does connect up with those communities in every way possible. Also like to thank Vice Chairman, Councillor John, next to me here, who has also worked tirelessly in terms of doing the same. Councillor Meredith, you've got a question.
It's not a question, Mr. Chairman. It's just that I'd like to announce on the 8th of February, the late Mayoress, Councillor Hargreaves' funeral is taking place. Councillor Hargreaves, as you know, was a leader of the Borough Council for many years, and his wife, who was the Mayoress, supported him 100%. I did, before her passing, just recently visited her at the care home, and she was delighted that I come to see her, and she thanked me profusely, and she talked with great fond memories regarding her husband, and I know that he'd done lots of work for Northampton, and I do believe it should be recognised. And the family have said that if anybody would like to attend the funeral on the 8th, if they get in touch with me, I will give them details. I think it's only right and fitting that because she was Mayoress that we should support by going to the funeral, some of us anyway. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Meredith. Okay, this item, this meeting has 3 main items of business, so we'd like to try and keep this obviously to those areas, and we also have points that have been raised at different areas, not just at this meeting. Thank you, Reverend Hill. So, item 5, I'd like to invite Councillor Hallam to introduce the report. You have up to 5 minutes and move the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a statutory report that we have to present back on an annual basis. This is our staff pay policy statement. I'd like to draw members' attention to section 10 of the appendices, which sets out the pay multiples, so the ratios in effect between the highest paid employee and the lowest paid employee. And it sets out over the last couple of years. And because over the last couple of years, we've really invested in our lowest paid employees because we recognise their value and we recognise that it's important to stay competitive in the wider employee marketplace. The best example of that, I think, is last year we announced our £10 an hour minimum wage. So all of that investment that we've put into the bottom end of the pay scale, as it were, has had the net effect of reducing that gap quite a bit between the highest paid and the lowest. So we started out at a ratio of 1 to 9.9, then we moved to a ratio of 1 to 9.4, now the ratio's at 8.6. So all of that evidence is in the report, and I think it shows that commitment we've had to reducing that gap. I'm happy to present the report.
Thank you very much indeed. I'd like to invite now Councillor Jonathan Nunn to second the proposal. You have up to 3 minutes.
Well, thank you, Chairman. Delighted to second this, and if I may, I reserve my right to speak later. Thank you.
Of course, thank you. Are there any members of the Council who wish to comment on this item? I have a few who are already listed. So I'm going to call those who have previously advised the Council. Councillor Wendy Randall.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My group will be voting this through. I really commend the work that has been done on this pay policy. When you've got 30 different sets of inherited terms and conditions, it's obviously no easy task. The only thing that my group would still be pushing for is us to become a living wage employer. I do note that, we are working towards that. but after the recent announcement that Sainsbury's is now paying £11 an hour, I believe we're 1 penny below. So for our group, you know, we would still be striving just to push that little bit extra. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, very good report, and the work that's gone into it really shows, but there are a couple of things. The report omits the pension that's added on to salaries, and actually that makes a huge difference. And I would quite like to know the gap, the wage gap, when the pension has been added, because I think that would give us a more realistic picture. I welcome the endeavour to close that gap somewhat, and I hope that continues. I think we really ought to know, because we have agreed we will check it, where the money goes. So there's no mention in here of following the money, and by that I mean how many employees live in West Northants, so how much of that huge salary bill stays local and helps fuel the local economy. I think that would be quite useful information to have. I'm a bit worried we haven't got an equalities impact assessment here, and there's no mention of us addressing the gender or the BAME pay gap. So I think that would also be quite useful information. We know that a huge majority of our staff are actually women, and so addressing the gender pay gap is really quite important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bearsworth.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, my group will be supporting this. We think it's a very good report. I think it needs, I still think it needs looking at as how many of our staff need to use food banks and maybe getting money off the hardship funds. So I think we need to make sure we haven't got anybody in our employ that's struggling. There are, I think, £10 an hour was a good move. I still think we could do more to keep staff, especially in social services area and that sort of thing. So we will be supporting a bit. I'm very pleased that it's a good report, but there are future things in the future I'd like to see brought forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys. Not present. Okay, and she'd listed. So, any further questions at all? No. In that case, return to Councillor Jonathan Nunn. You reserved your right to speak.
Yes, thank you. Nothing further to add. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Hallam.
Yeah, thank you very much. Happy to pick up on all of those points, and it's good to see people supporting this report and recognising some of the aims that we've had that this report shows coming to fruition. My concern, Councillor Randall, on living wage employment status, and I raise this at scrutiny, is last year we ended up paying more than living wage status. So if we signed up to that, we could actually give our employees a pay decrease. And this year, the living wage has been announced at £10.90. You mentioned £10.99. Our annual pay award hasn't been determined yet. It's still with the unions. Certainly my ambition in the budget is more, is again more than that £10.90 living wage. So I wouldn't want to pull it down to that. I understand that there are some additional benefits in terms of things that you can write into to tenders and things like that to make sure that people that you partner with are at that level. But I still think we can probably do that as well, just as effectively by stating what our living wage is as an employer. Oxford do this very well. Oxford call it the Oxford living wage, which takes into account your high cost of living in Oxford. So I think that's something we can achieve without the necessity of tying us to a level that will be lower than our aspirations are actually at. Councillor Stone, pensions added on to salary, happy to look at that. No reason. I don't know what the statute, this is a statutory report, so we have to follow a statutory basis for it, but I've no reason why we couldn't add that in or certainly get you that information. The lack of a qualities impact assessment, again, I think that's down to the fact that we have to state this report in a certain way. You talked a little bit about the various ratios, how many people live here and all that type of stuff. Those stats have been produced. I think they were in the presentation that we did to scrutiny just last week, some of those statistics. The one that I have in my mind is not one about different splits. It's actually that on the lowest rate of pay, we now only actually have 68 employees out of the 2,700 that we employ. So we've done really, really well to reduce that down as much as we can. Obviously, we're looking at it again this year with the unions. Councillor Beardsworth, if you'd like us to do more, I would too. Since vesting day, we've actually increased the lowest pay at this authority by 18%. And depending on what the unions come out with and what we agree with the unions, it's highly likely that we'll end up with the lowest paid people having a pay rise in excess of 20% since vesting day. So I think that shows you that we're as absolutely committed to what we see as our valuable asset is our staff. Mr. Chairman, happy to move to the vote.
Thank you very much indeed. And Mr. Hanson, Democratic Services Manager, will take the vote now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. We've opened the vote now.
Okay, please identify yes, no, or abstentions on your pads. Any difficulties, please raise your hand now.
It's disappeared, but it was carried.
It was carried. Thank you. Okay, so it was unanimous. It's marvellous. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, item 6, updates to West Northamptonshire Constitution. I invite Suresh Patel to introduce the report and move the proposal. You have 5 minutes. Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to propose this report to consider by the Council to recommendation made by Democracy and Standards Committee on update on the Constitution, which is a recommendation on 3.1 A, B, C, and D. If I can just highlight a couple of things. 5.7, where the time of the meeting will start at 5 o'clock and the finish time will be 9:15. And then, if need to be, Chairman has the right to go on for another 15 minutes to finish at 9:30, where previously it was 10 o'clock. I mean, there has been a lot of discussion going on how we can improve the council meeting. And after discussing with all the leaders and deputy leaders and the Democracy and Standard Committee...
Sorry, Councillor Patel, could you speak into your microphone, please?
Yeah.
So it's a little clearer. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
That's better, thank you.
So we have reached here. I mean, obviously, there will be always room for changes if required for future. And we will have a further discussion on that. I won't go through the whole report, but it's there. Happy to present the report.
Lovely, thank you very much indeed. And Councillor Grant, I believe you'd like the second proposal?
Yeah, I'm delighted to second the proposal, Chairman, and I'll reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. We have a few members of the Council who also advised they'd like to speak on this matter. If you'd like to speak and you're not one of the three, Councillor Stone, Councillor Bearsworth and Councillor Humphreys, who's not here, please raise your hand. So Councillor Stone, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really pleased, that we're regarding the Constitution as a working document. I think that's a sign of a healthy organisation, and I'm really pleased about that. I'm really pleased that people are taking on other people's ideas. There's something really good about that kind of cross-party working, so I'd like to thank everybody for that. I need to let Council know that I've asked the Equalities Committee to have some regard for how we conduct our council meetings, because I do think there's lots of equalities issues. There are issues for people with disabilities, there's issues for people who work nights, there's issues for women who council work is like their triple shift. So I think it's great that we're having those debates in the committee, but I'd quite like a wider view of those equalities forums to see what they say. I've also got in mind that we're expecting staff to work a really, really long day. We no longer provide, for right reasons, hospitality for members or officers. I do think that's a bit of an issue as well. When do people eat? I understand where the initial push to have evening meetings came from. It came from young people without families at that time who work full-time, and I get that. But there are other pressing needs as well, so I think we need to look at it a bit in the round, if that's okay.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Councillor Bearsworth.
Thank you, Chair. Like Councillor Stone, I'm very pleased that the Constitutional Working Party has agreed to take this back and taken other things back in the past, which I think is a good idea. It shows a progressive council. There's never going to be a right time for everybody. It's impossible to do that. But what we're trying to do is actually have a meeting that satisfies the majority. And by starting at 5, I was hoping we would go till 10 o'clock or 10:15, because of giving us that extra hour to discuss the motions and things like that, which we class as important as opposition parties. The administration obviously aren't so bothered about that, but I'm sure they're quite happy to have motions put forward if they're good motions and they can adopt them sometimes. But I really feel that this isn't the end of the road as far as the council meetings are, and this is a try it and see how it works out. So I think the chair of the committee has said that if it doesn't work out, we can take it back and rethink it. So I think that's the possible thing, is to see how this goes. We've got budget next meeting, which will not be, and then it won't be till the new year, and I believe there'll be changes anyway then. But I thank the chair and the committee for taking it back and looking at it and coming up with some resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Randall.
Yes, thank you, Chair. You know, I really appreciate this being back on the table. We had, it was Councillor Nunn and Councillor Beardsworth and myself, and we had a meeting, you know, and we can discuss things, and we sort of thrashed a few ideas out. So the main reason for moving the time was that we weren't getting motions heard. So we hoped that by extending the time of the council that we would. It's not gone quite as far as I would have liked it to, but, you know, it's a start, and like we say, it's work in progress, and, you know, really appreciate the fact that, you know, that we will all work together and try and get the best, the best meetings that we can possibly have. And we're never going to suit everybody, but right in the beginning, it was felt that evening meetings were allowed more people to become councillors than daytime meetings. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Meredith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, I'm not pleased with this Constitution Committee, and I'm going to tell you the reason why. Now, when we had the old county council, a lot of talk was talked about the chairmanship of this committee, of the councillors' committee. And it was agreed by some of the councillors, not all, especially the Conservatives, that the chairmanship should be changed and shared between the opposition councillors and the administration. And I as a member of that of the old council was in favour of that, and I think that should be a really good idea. And I can't understand why this committee are not even talked about this, because it should be talked about. It's only right and proper. Well, why should the Conservatives, because they're in administration, have the full right to have the chairman running the meetings for that period of time? I think the opposition councillors should have a chance to take in the chair of the thing. Let me just give you a little bit of history. I remember when the Conservative Council was in a minority, and they'd done an agreement in that time with then a Mr. Morby, who would then, they said, you can be chairman if you support us. So it was okay for them to do it then, but it's not okay for them to do it now. And I was wondering why the Constitution Committee have not even talked about it. But I have my suspicions why the Conservatives do not want to share the chairmanship. And I think it's ludicrous in this day and age of democracy to keep the chairmanship with the administration for the whole 4 years. We're 2 years into the administration and nothing has been done. and I urge you as the administration to have a look at my idea of sharing the chairmanship between the opposition councillors so we can have a fairer and a more just meeting. Thank you. And that's no disrespect to...
Thank you very much, Councillor Meredith. I think we've...
You missed my praise for you.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I'm very modest, so you can put that in writing if you like.
You shouldn't turn the mic off without asking.
No, not at all. No, I saved you from the bell, sir. I do have a bell here. The first person that triggers the bell triggers £5 to my local charities. How about that? Okay, Councillor Ian McCord, you're next, sir. Okay, Councillor Meredith, if you can just push the button.
You've already turned.
No, Councillor Meredith.
Sorry.
Okay.
Can you work your
McCord.
finger, Dennis?
Councillor McCord, you have 3 minutes starting now, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I certainly welcome this as another sort of step in the right direction. The tidying up of the opposition debate, to me, seems to be a good and sensible thing. I said it at the time that I didn't think it would work, and it is now going to at least have a motion that we can debate and vote on according to the normal rules of debate, and I certainly welcome that. And isn't it great that we've got now to 6:30 and we're on to the second item of business, because we didn't have all the frippery at the beginning and it wasn't 2.5 hours in before we actually got to the first substantive item of business. Maybe there's something to learn from that as well. The bit again, you know, I think we will have to come back to this. I'm not entirely happy then that you have an opposition Labour debate at the beginning and then Labour get the first slot at the end. That really should go to the Liberal Democrats. You know, it's very important that Dennis brings us the latest whisperings from Greta Thunberg at every meeting, and I think it's. I think that's important. It really ought to be the first item. I also think that 2 minutes for speeches might be cutting it a little short. It does take a little bit of time to develop an argument coherently, and 2 minutes might be pushing it. But I think then there was an opportunity missed. You know, there are things where we say speaking on all items of business. I think that should be to business matters only. So reports to Cabinet should not be commented upon at the beginning of the meeting. If you want to speak to a Cabinet item, go to the relevant Cabinet meeting. I think as well we should be looking at speaking at Cabinet. For call-ins, that should be limited to the relevant committee chair to report back on the call-in and not allow a repeat of the call-in meeting to be happening again. And I also think there's an opportunity that the democracy and standards ought to be taken out of political control so that everybody, everywhere, can have an opportunity to sit on what is, you know, clues in the name, the Democracy and Standards Committee. But I will welcome that so far as a step in the right direction, and I'm sure we'll come back to it. And I'm always happy to input into some of these ideas. And as for the chair of other parties, I don't actually think it's a matter for the Constitution, although it is something that I do agree with, and it is something I did try to get, but too many people had other ideas on that. And just one last thing, I just think, can I just move an amendment to the recommendations that are item E, that we say that these effects to the Constitution take effect at the close of this meeting. Otherwise, at the close of me speaking, everybody will be down to 2 minutes. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor McCord. Councillor Brown, Michael Brown.
Cool, thank you very much, Chair. Just touching on the, Councillor McCord's point about a coherent argument, I think Councillor Meredith there had 3 minutes to build a coherent argument, but didn't really quite achieve that. So I think 2 minutes is more than enough time. I'm fairly in favour of most of these changes, but 5 p.m. is just simply too early for a lot of people at work. So purely selfish reasons on my side. There's no way I can leave work at 5 p.m, get across a very congested road network that is Northampton Town Centre, get parked and walk over here for 5 p.m. So I suspect there's going to be a lot of late entries and missed opportunities for debate as a result of moving it to 5 p.m. So I won't be supporting the proposals here tonight purely on that basis. I think the rest of it's pretty good. I think these meetings are pretty inefficient. I mean, like, I know it's very precious to a lot of people, but for someone who's an atheist, we spend a bit of time at the beginning of the meeting doing some religious work. And I think we should just get down to the business and serve the people of this area rather than wasting time on things like that. So I think we can probably look at being more business-like throughout these meetings and scrap some parts at the beginning and just get to the business of it and start at 6.
Councillor Pinder Chauhan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to say that I'd like to welcome this report, actually, and the change of time, actually, staying in the evening is actually quite helpful. Being a mother and, in the daytime when we used to have the county council meetings, it was a problem dropping them off, school pick-up times and so on. So I think I'd like to welcome that 5 p.m. start time. And also, I'd like to say I actually quite like the prayers at the beginning. I think they're quite a good start to the council meetings. And I sorry, Michael, I have to disagree with you there, even though we're on the same side. But I have to say it's actually quite a nice start to the meeting as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chauhan. Any other colleagues who'd like to speak at all? No. Councillor Patel, would you like to... Or Councillor Grant, so you'd reserve your right to speak on this item. Would you like to speak at all?
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be very brief. It's actually very interesting when you listen to members from all over all the parties actually talking about consensus and actually agreeing that this is a living document. And it has had more times in this council come back in the last year than it would normally do. And that's good because it's a start. It's not perfect, but we keep having the opportunities to make amendments, make suggestions. And I think actually the Democracy and Standards Committee actually is not really a political committee. It does actually listen, it does get consensus, and I think it's actually doing a really good job. And I'm really delighted that the members of the various parties also met in advance of this as well to come forward with suggestions, and it just shows you that you can agree sometimes on a way forward. I'd also accept that for some people the 5 o'clock start will be difficult, and I think it's something we have to be careful that we don't disengage people, because one of the beauties of having evening meetings is you do have the opportunity of encouraging more people from working life to take part in local government. And I think the future of local government is very key, that we have people wanting to come in at a younger age who do have jobs but won't necessarily have the ability. And Councillor Stone, thank you for your bit on equality and all the various things. I'm probably the one member here that's up at 5 in the morning, in the office at 6:15, and probably would get home into bed about 11 and up again. So I look forward to that. It's something we do, we enjoy doing, we run our lives according to how we do it. And I think we just have to respect that some members will have some issues, but we can always revisit it in the future. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Councillor Patel, would you like to sum up, please, and respond to the debate? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank all the speakers for their comments, and it's been noted. As I said, this is a living document. We will always sort of review on a regular basis, and if anything needs to change, we will do that and bring it to the full council. As for the equality, I mean, Councillor Stone is part and parcel of the Democracy and Standards Committee. We always look at that, and they get more airtime on that as well. So I'm happy to sort of discuss further if necessary and move the report.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Patel. And Mr. Paul Hanson, Democratic Services Manager, will now take the vote.
So, point of order, Chairman. Does he accept?
Mr. Councillor McCord.
Is Suresh accepting the amendment that they happen at the close of this meeting?
Will be end of this meeting.
It is in the recommendations. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, Councillor. Yours a microphone, please.
It's mine. Go on. Pretend you're me. That'll really get you far.
Not really, no. Is it also possible that an independent voice can be heard on the Democracy and Standards Committee?
Sorry, Councillor Sharps, can you just clarify your point?
Is it also possible that an independent voice can be heard on the Democracy and Standards Committee, because there currently isn't one?
Councillor Patel, would you like to answer that?
Sort of registered to come and speak.
Okay,
Yeah.
Councillor Sharp, just bear with us a moment. Okay, Councillor Patel, if you just clarify that point, please.
I mean, when the papers are published, everyone's welcome to come and speak at the Standards and Democracy and Standards Committee.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll take that point and now we'll conduct the vote. So, Mr. Hanson, if you can release the vote, please. Please use your vote, yes, no, or abstention in support of item 6. Indeed, and the motion's carried. Results are 52 in favour, 7 against and 5 abstentions. Thank you very much. Item 7, the procurement implementation of children's social care case management system. I'd like to invite Councillor Fiona Baker to introduce the report and move the proposal. We have 5 minutes. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The contract for Northamptonshire Children's Trust states that we have to provide children's social care with a case management system to operate effectively and keep necessary records. I think those of you will know who've read the recent Ofsted report that the case management system that we currently have is not actually helping our staff to do the best job possible, and therefore I think the obligation is on all of us to give them the tools that they need in order to do the job, to draw all the information together that they need on our children and to do the very best that they can to do the best for them. So the contractual arrangements are that the OLM for the provision of Care First ends in January 2025. Not having a system would prevent Northamptonshire Children's Trust and therefore the Council from meeting statutory regulations. There's no contractual obligations for the current NCT case management to be extended beyond January 2025, and so a new procurement must be launched. We need to improve what we offer, not just stick with what we've got. The costs of the system will be borne by both WNC and NNC at an estimated cost of 2.8 million. Split by the previously agreed percentages, WNC's share of the cost will be 56% and equate to 1.573 million over the next 4 financial years to implement this system. The funding approach for the programme has been agreed in principle by both councils, and the procurement process will dictate the balance between capital and revenue funding. This has been agreed by WNC and NNC that procurement and technical support will be delivered by West Northants Council. NNC have agreed to contribute to the costs of this. This allows us to ensure the outcome of the procurement and manage risks often associated with IT procurement, for example, increasing costs, delays, etc. Our Chief Executive, Anna Earnshaw, chairs the Northamptonshire Children's Trust Case Management and Fostering System Programme Board. So we will have a good oversight of this and make sure that this runs in the way that we would wish to see it run. So the recommendation is that the Council agrees to proceed with the replacement of the case management system and to delegate oversight of the programme as set out in the report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Baker. Councillor Mark Hughes, I believe you'd like to second the proposal. You have 3 minutes to do so.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm delighted to second this report and also like to commend the proactive work that's been taken that will help us to continue to improve all the vital services that we provide to our young people across West Northants.
Very much. I have 3 members of the Council who have notified originally that they'd like to speak. If you have a question and you're not Councillor Stone, Councillor Purcell or Councillor Beardsworth, please do raise your hand. Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Chair, and all I can say is thank goodness. It's beyond time. One of my very deep concerns for 10 years, actually, has been that we haven't just been failed in terms of having poor children's services by people delivering the service. They have been failed by a lack of inadequate infrastructure. And their job has been made so difficult because they haven't had the right infrastructure. We've also had a situation where the IT, which is so important, data collection, data analysis in children's services is absolutely, they can't do their work without it. Doesn't talk to schools, doesn't talk to education services, doesn't talk to housing. We have really got to find ways of joining all that up so that it's really efficient. So people's stories are only told and heard once. They don't have to keep repeating it because that's traumatizing. And we need, I keep saying this, we need to find ways on our databases to flag up young people's vulnerabilities. So when they rock up at housing or wherever they rock up, the police, everybody can see that these are our children. We're responsible for them and they have got particular vulnerabilities. So we need systems that work properly for the staff and work properly for the young people. One of the things that I'm really concerned about at the moment is I'm giving out these cards, being very effective, I have to say, to young women in schools as well as women in the community. And, you know, I'm hearing a lot of horrible stories about what's happening to young women on the streets, in schools, and sometimes at home. So this is a really important app. I'd like to thank Councillor Smith for making a lot of them available to me. But one of the things I'm very concerned about is bullying, racism, sexual abuse in schools is known within the school, but we don't capture that data. So we don't have any way of intervening, we don't have any way of supporting the schools, and we don't have any way of supporting those young people. So when we are developing new systems, I would ask that that is looked at. It used to be collected. It used to be collected before academisation, and we used to have teams of officers who could go in and support schools and young people when they were encountering those issues. Bullying issues have got a lot worse. Misogyny in schools has got a lot worse. Sexual harassment in schools has got a lot worse, and we don't have the wherewithal to deal with it. I'm hoping that those safeguarding issues are taken on and dealt with within the new data arrangements. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stone. Councillor Purser.
Thank you, Chair. I want to support this as well. Having good IT increases staff morale and leads to much more efficient working. It also contributes to the safety of our children. My one question to Councillor Baker is, can you confirm that this will be up and running by December 2024? Because it seems that we're working to quite a tight time schedule here, and it's very important that we have the system working as soon as possible. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Bearsworth.
Thank you. May I say, first of all, thank you for doing this, for all the children that pass through our hands every day of the week, because we need this desperately to keep an eye on children. When you hear of the dreadful things that happened with the probation service recently and the young woman losing her life, we need to keep information on our systems that's going to help our youngsters reach a good age and a good lifestyle. So I think we need to, I'm very pleased you're doing it. I'm delighted it's being done. I wish it had been done sooner, but I understand the cost implications of it. And I'm sure it'll make a huge difference to the staff and for the children that we look after.
Councillor Bearsworth. Any further councillors who'd like to speak on this item? In that case, Councillor Baker, would you like to sum up? You have 3 minutes. Oh,
Thank you.
Sorry. Councillor... Sorry. Would you... You're all glitter. Very kind indeed. Councillor Glitter, then. Would you like to speak? Councillor Sharps. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Baker. Councillor Sharps, your microphone's not working. If you'd like to use another microphone. Thank you.
I honestly don't need... this. Now you're making me shout. I'd like to support this. I think the work that has been done by everyone to do with this is fun.
Thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Baker, if you'd like to sum up, please. Thank you very much. If Councillor McCord, you can just switch off your microphone, please.
Oh,
Thank you. Councillor Baker, the floor is
Okay,
yours.
yes,
3
I'm
minutes.
going. As most of you who have worked with me already know, that I'm very passionate about the children that we look after, and I agree with many of the things that Councillor Stone has said. Unfortunately, she'll be aware, as I am, that with the academisation of schools, we have very little control over what they do, but their safeguarding leads should be doing this work, and I will ask questions along those lines to see how we can get in where possible. So thank you very much for highlighting that. I'm very pleased just to bring this report to the Council, and very happy that most people are going to support it. As we are all corporate parents, it's our duty to do everything we can to support the children that are in our care. So I recommend this to Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Baker. Mr. Paul Hanson, if you'd like to take the vote, please. Democratic Services Manager, if you'd like to please ensure that you all have access to a serviceable unit. If you have any difficulties in voting, please do indicate now. We're voting on item 7. Yes, no, or abstention. Okay, and the motion is carried. Yes, 66, no, 1, and no abstentions. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, item 8, any urgent items of business? I don't believe we've had any urgent items of business brought forward. No, thank you very much indeed. Just one last and very important matter. We are on the eve of International Global Holocaust Memorial Day, a day which was selected by the United Nations as a day to remember all of those who have lost many people through just being of one faith or in their own beliefs. The day was chosen because it represents the day that Auschwitz concentration camp was taken back and effectively returned to freedom in 1945 by the Red Army. It's an important day we should all remember because over 6 million Jews lost their lives between 1933 and 1945. Not a small number of people, as we know. Right across the world, everyone feels the pain when someone's beliefs are challenged. And it is important, and this year's theme is about ordinary people, to think about those around us, and we do ask, and we should all ask, all around the world, that those aggressors of other nations should down their weapons and should talk peacefully and enter into peaceful agreements, because it is so important that our communities do not suffer. We are a community in Northamptonshire, in West Northamptonshire, supporting so many other communities at this present moment in time. And the reason we do that is because we love one another, and we should continue to talk peacefully and find ways to get through aggressive natures that others decide to impress upon other nations. Let's talk peacefully, let's leave the meeting tonight, and please carry that message with you. It's a very important time in everyone's hearts. Let's talk peace and not war. Thank you. Good night to all. Safe journey home.